My name is Paul Woolever. I'm the owner of Pinellas Power Products. This is the installation instruction video for the single-phase open frame generators that use a 457cc air-cooled engine. There are several generators that use this engine. The DuroMax 12,000, Westinghouse 12,000, and a few others. I'm going to be shooting this video using the DuroMax, but this video will pertain to the others as well. The kit will come with a Yamaha fuel hose. It won't be in the box anymore because I have to fit everything inside a mailer. A section of 1/4-inch hose, a section of 3/16 hose, a fuel pump, fuel filter, and several smaller parts. First step is to remove the valve cover bolt. You'll set the valve cover bolt aside. You won't be using that. You're going to replace it with the valve cover bolt that's included in the kit. Then you'll remove the stock breather line, which is this one here. There are two size hose clamps included in the kit, the larger ones and the smaller ones. So you'll take a larger hose clamp, slide it over the hose, right about here, and you'll want the clasp facing away from you. And there are teeth on these hose clamps, and you'll squeeze this down 5 teeth and you'll hear it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll notice what that's done is restrict the hose and made an hourglass. And what that's to do is to force air to go through this hose as well as this one. So we're restricting this one just a little bit to increase the pulse wave that goes through this hose. What that does is it tunes the fuel pump. Okay. Next thing in the kit will be 2 pieces of Velcro. You'll peel the backing off of the stiff Velcro as opposed to the softer one and put it on the top of the air box right here, and that's going to mount the fuel pump. Then you'll take the softer piece of Velcro peel the plastic backing off of that and stick it to the fuel pump. When you put the fuel pump on, point it to where the side with 2 hose barbs points up. Incidentally, this one, the one in the center, is the pulse line. The one over here is fuel in, and the one over here is fuel out. So we're just going to go ahead and stick it on there. Then make sure that the fuel selector valve is in the off position, which is sideways. You'll squeeze the Corbin clamp, and you might get a little bit of fuel dropping out of there. Okay, we didn't this time, that's good. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to start running the hoses. The first hose will run from the pulse port to the pulse port on the fuel pump. This engine is a fairly large engine, so the fuel pump on this is going to use 1/4-inch ports, even though the fuel line that's stock is only 3/16. So we're going to cut a section of the 3/16 hose that came in the kit. We'll cut that 11.5 inches long. Included in the kit are 3 3/16 to 1/4-inch adapters. So we'll use one of those on this. You'll put the 3/16 hose over the 3/16 side. Then we'll take a piece of 1/4-inch hose. We're going to cut it 3 1/4 inches long. Like so. I'm going to run the hose behind the spark plug wire because you won't be taking this hose on and off, but you will be checking the spark plug occasionally to service it. Then go ahead and put the spark plug wire back on. Then this hose will go on to the pulse port of the fuel pump. I'm just putting a little bit of oil on that to make it easier to put the hose on. Okay. Then what we're going to do is take a 2 1/4 inch section of the 1/4 inch fuel line, maybe 2 1/4 inches long, and another one of the 3/16 to 1/4 inch adapters. And this is the stock fuel hose that you just removed from the fuel selector valve. And it went from the fuel selector valve to the carburetor. So what we're going to do now is run it from the output port of the fuel pump to the carburetor. We'll squeeze the top or stock Corbin clamp and slide it back down here for the 3/16 side. For the 1/4 inch hose, we're going to use the larger clamps that came in the kit. This is going to be a fuel hose, which is under pressure. It's only going to be a very low pressure, but still it's gasoline, so we don't want any leaks, and that's why we're going to be clamping this one up. This hose here just carries air. You do not have to put clamps on it, but the kit comes with enough clamps that you can put clamps on that. Next, we're going to take a 1 3/4 inch section of 1/4 inch ID hose. And that's going to go on the fuel input side of the pump. And again, since this has gasoline in it, we're going to put hose clamps on that. Then we're going to take a 15 1/4 inch section of the 1/4 inch hose. And that's going to go onto the T connector, the one that goes horizontally. Then we're going to take a 10 inch section of the 3/16 hose, which is the smaller hose. I'm going to cut this just a little bit longer. I'm going to cut it to 10 1/2 because we can always cut it shorter if we need to. Then I'm going to use the 3rd adapter, and it's another 3/16 to 1/4 inch adapter. Then I'm going to make up a 3 1/2 inch 1/4 inch hose, and you can cut these each slightly longer if you want to, because it's always easy to shorten them, but it's impossible to lengthen them. Take one of the smaller hose clamps, put it on the 3/16 hose. Take one of the larger hose clamps, put on a 1/4 inch hose. And this is going to go on the portion of the T connector that points straight up. Put just a little bit of oil on that T connector there. Now you'll notice that this hose is a lot longer than it needs to be. And what I'm doing is I'm tucking it up behind this and then back down to the fuel selector valve, because I want you to be able to choke the generator easily without having to fumble through the fuel lines. That's the only reason why that hose appears to be a lot longer than it needs to be. I'm putting a connector on here. Okay, this hose actually didn't need to be made that much longer. We'll be able to cut off a section of it and put it onto the fuel selector valve. But like I said earlier, it's a lot easier to cut one short than it is to sit there and be irritated with yourself for making it too long. What I'm doing is just reaching in here and making sure that this hose isn't touching any sharp edges. I just wanted a nice smooth loop. So I'm going to wind up cutting about 1 1/4 inch off of it. We'll take another one of the small hose clamps, put it onto this. Okay. Next, you're going to put the fuel filter, and I would like the fuel filter, you'll notice that there's a clear vial on it so you can see through it, and you want the fuel flow in the direction of the arrows. Obviously it's going to come from the fuel port, which is going to be out here, flowing this direction. So you'll put the fuel filter onto this hose. There are some zip ties that come in the kit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a zip tie and zip tie this hose right to this bracket where they ran the float bowl vent line to. And what that's going to do is it's going to hold this fuel hose out of the way of the recoil start in case you ever need to start it with a recoil start instead of the electric starter motor. I'm also going to run a zip tie around this fuel line, the one that runs up in an arc away from the choke mechanism. And I'm going to zip tie it to the bracket that the fuel tank is mounted to. And it doesn't need to be pulled tight at all. I just don't want it flopping down and causing you any problem when you go to choke a cold motor. So there's really no tension on this fuel or hose clamp or this zip tie here at all. This hose here will move in it. Okay. Then what we're going to do is install a quick disconnect fitting right here And you could put it here in this corner or anywhere in this area. I'm going to move it over this way because I don't want the fuel line to get in the way of the recoil start mechanism. I want the fuel line to be that direction quite a bit. And this way it'll allow us to do that. On the DuroMax version of this generator, there's a decal here with the phone support, and I'm going to put it right where the icon of the phone was. You can still read the tech support sign and so forth. If you're using another brand like the Westinghouse or another generator manufacturer that uses the same engine, you'll wind up putting it in the same general area. Just look at it and line it up so that the fuel hose doesn't get in the way of the recoil start. Okay, the kit is going to come with a 1/2-inch washer. On some of the brands of generator, it will use a plastic panel here. On the ones that use a metal panel, the metal panel is so thin that when you torque the hose barb down against the quick disconnect fitting, it doesn't grip it very tightly. So what we're going to do is put the flat washer behind it so it will grip the panel and the flat washer, and that way it'll grip it tightly. Included in the kit is a roll of Teflon tape, and it's a 100-foot roll, so there's plenty of extra tape for you to make mistakes with. When you're wrapping the Teflon tape, you're going to put a couple layers on it, 3 or 4, whatever you feel comfortable with. Just be sure not to overwrap the end. And here's what I mean. You do not want to do like this, because if you do, when you tighten it down, it's going to cut this piece off, and truth be known, that piece will get caught in the fuel filter. But still, we don't want to clog up the fuel filter before it's time. Now you can put the fuel inlet valve anywhere you want. I put it here because the fuel inlet valve does not stick out further than the tire, so the tire is going to give it some protection. As you can see, the quick disconnect is now nice and solidly attached. And then we'll cut a piece of hose just long enough to connect these two. Incidentally, if you don't have a little cap of oil, what you can do is take out the dipstick and just put a little bit of oil, just tap the dipstick against it, and it'll make all these fuel fittings go together a lot more easily. Then also included in the kit is a decal with the instructions that tell you how to use it. Incidentally, to use the stock tank, which this does preserve the stock tank, it works exactly the way it always did. You just use the generator as though it was stock. When you want to use the remote tank, you hook up the hose, and I'll be demonstrating that in the demo video, but you'll hook up the hose, make sure that the prime bulb is pumped, make sure that the fuel selector valve is in the off position for running off the remote tank, where it's in the on position for running off the stock tank. But at any rate, we'll stick this decal somewhere where there's no other decals. And that looks like as good a place as any. If you wanted to, you could use the rest of the clamps to put on the air line or pulse line. Like I say, it's carrying air instead of fuel, so it's not critical that it be clamped up. However, there are enough clamps included in the kit that you can put clamps on the air line as well. That's the install process right there. It's pretty straightforward and simple. Now when you go to service the air filter, you can simply pull on the Velcro and pull the fuel pump out of the way. Fuel pump will fold up, allows you access to the air filter for normal servicing. The spark plug is perfectly accessible. Everything that was on the generator stock stays the way it was. It just adds the possibility of hooking a remote fuel tank to it. I thank you for your time.